The customizability of the Xbox Series X and S is awesome. We have another example of that to go over. Ubisoft is proving that the digital future for gaming could have a pretty grim outlook. Haven Studios is now officially a part of PlayStation Studios, plus more, so let's get into it. So the Xbox Series X and S has a ton of customizability, especially when you get into the developer mode. It's one of my favorite things about the console itself is that Xbox and Microsoft give you these consoles when you buy them and then say, hey, here, spend $19 and lock the dev mode, and you can pretty much do whatever you want, put emulators on there. We've seen the emulators work extremely well on both the Xbox Series X and S. And we have another video here, another experiment that went down with Digital Foundry installing Windows 98 so you can have the ability to play Windows 98 games right on your Xbox Series X. So if you were around during the Windows 98 days and you're a fan of the games that were available during that era, and hey, you want to play these games on your Xbox Series X, this is something that you may want to look into. Digital Foundry put out this entire video going over how it can be done, how the games run, all of that type of stuff. And it was pretty cool. These games run pretty decently well via actually installing Windows 98 on the Xbox Series X. So the process itself isn't that hard, but there are some steps that you probably will take a little more time to do. First of all, for all this to be possible, you have to unlock, like I said, the developer mode for $19. And then you're going to have to install RetroArch onto your Xbox Series X and then get a plugin for that called the DOSBox Pure. And then finally, you're going to have to get a copy of Windows 98 and then put that all together. And you're going to be able to start playing games like Turok, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun. The hardest part of all of that stuff is getting that copy of Windows 98, getting that disk image for the OS. But you'll be able to figure out a way to do that, I'm sure, if you want to do this badly enough. And when he went through all of the games that were running on it, overall, these games ran pretty damn well. You can see here some of the FPS and the frame rates and everything like that. And they're staying up to par. They're staying up to pretty much what they would be if they were running natively on Windows 98. And one of the things they do mention here is that the actual software rendering works better than like the 3DFX emulation based off of Digital Foundry's test. Now, one of the other caveats you have to be aware of when you're wanting to do this type of thing is that apparently the actual mouse is not detected. So with the Xbox Series X and S, you can plug in a mouse and keyboard to play just regular Xbox games that support that, and it works completely fine. But when they were using Windows 98, the keyboard would work, but for some reason the mouse wouldn't work. So they were left with actually having to use an Xbox controller joystick as the mouse to move it around and to be able to function the operating system. Now, I mean, you look at this type of stuff, and who would really want to do this? Is the people who like tinkering and like trying this stuff out, and they want to get that nostalgia feel of playing games from Windows 98 again. And just the fact you can actually do it on the Xbox Series X and S is pretty cool in my opinion. Will people do this? We'll have to wait and see. After this video has been watched by more people, I'm sure they will want to try it out. It's definitely something that if you're into kind of going through your console, customizing it, doing things that the regular person wouldn't do on it, definitely something to try out. I just think it's cool that Xbox and Microsoft allow this to happen, and that they give you this console when you spend that money on it, and you can customize it, especially when you get into that developer mode. All right, jumping over here to some Ubisoft news, some Assassin's Creed news, and just some weird stuff that Ubisoft is doing with some games on Steam, with their DLC and all of this stuff that is just not very good and gives a grim outlook for the digital future of video games. So last week, Ubisoft announced that they were shutting down multiplayer for 15 older games and were taking away access to some of the DLC. And this included DLC people had paid for, had owned. They were not going to be able to access that DLC for these games. So here's the list of the games. You might want to go and check those out and see what platforms they are shutting them down on and what the changes in the functionality will be. But some of the big games that were part of this list were multiple Assassin's Creed games, Far Cry 3, Splinter Cell, Blacklist, Driver San Francisco, and Prince of Persia Forgotten Sands. And what Ubisoft says here is that closing online services for older games allows us to focus our resources on delivering great experiences for players who are playing newer or more popular titles. But the biggest bad thing of all is the ability to not be able to access DLC anymore. It says here, in addition, many PC titles will no longer be able to install or access DLC, and Ghost Recon Future Soldier single player campaign will only work in offline mode. We go down here through the list. We'll look at the ones of PC where you won't be able to access any of the DLC. Here's one, Assassin's Creed 3. You will be unable to play multiplayer, link Ubisoft accounts in-game, or use online features. Additionally, the installation and access to downloadable content will be unavailable. So this to me is almost unforgivable. It's something that should never happen, especially if you've purchased DLC, you haven't installed it, you haven't accessed it. Let's say you just haven't gotten to it yet. You're not going to be able to do this after September 1st. And it's a bad outlook for the future of games when it comes to digital. And it's why a lot of people say you should be buying physical so that this type of stuff doesn't happen to you. Hopefully, if when you do buy the game physically, all of the content is on the disc, which for a lot of games, that isn't the case. A lot of games you buy physically, it's just a key, a license key where you have to go to the store anyways, whether that's an Xbox, whether that is PlayStation or PC, to download the content that you've purchased. And now we have another issue that is going on. This one has been updated though, so it may not be as bad as a lot of people thought it was when it first happened, when people started seeing this within the Steam page. And that is that Assassin's Creed Liberation will soon be unplayable. So there was this going around, this picture here from the Steam page, and you can see the notices here saying, at the request of the publisher, Assassin's Creed Liberation HD is no longer available for sale on Steam. And then again, notice, please note this title will not be accessible following September 1st, 2022. This had people thinking that if you bought the game, or if you want to buy the game, you just weren't going to be able to use it or play it or install it or anything like that after September 1st, 2022. Now, I don't believe that is the case anymore because there was an update to Video Games Chronicle. They reached out to Ubisoft and they gave 2 updates. Here's the first one. We don't take the decision to retire services for older Ubisoft games lightly, and our teams are currently accessing all available options for players who will be impacted when these games online services are decommissioned on September 1st, 2022. We are also working with our partners to update this information across all storefronts so players will be fully informed about the removal of online services at the point of purchase, as well as via our support article where we share the news. And then update number 2, as stated in our support article, only DLCs and online features will be affected by the upcoming decommissioning. Current owners of those games will still be able to access, play, or re-download them. Our teams are working with our partners to update this information across all storefronts and are also assessing all available options for players who will be impacted when these games online services are decommissioned on September 1st, 2022. It has always been our intention to do everything in our power to allow those legacy titles to remain available in the best possible conditions for players, and this is what we are working towards. So with those updates, it makes it not as bad, but still not great with the decommissioning and the getting rid of the ability to use online services, but especially play DLC for games that you've bought. But when it comes to Assassin's Creed Liberation HD, if you've bought the game, you don't have to worry. You're still going to be able to play that game after September 1st, 2022. Obviously, there was bad communication on the storefronts that were making people believe that that was not going to be the case. But this is just what the future of gaming is going to be if there is not game preservation, which is one of the big reasons why I absolutely loved what Xbox was doing with their backwards compatibility program. It is a shame that that program is no longer because of all of the roadblocks with the licensing and the resources that have to go in to get more games available via backwards compatibility. But if you're not buying physical, if you haven't bought physical for these older games back in the day, you may never be able to get to play some of them as we move forward into the future of gaming. All right, just a quick update on some games that were supposed to be coming over to Xbox. The remaster of Goldeneye and then a brand new 1v100 game. These are all rumors, but it seemed like these games were both going to be making its way over. First of all, with Goldeneye, it was the remaster, something that we have seen a video of showing the game pretty much ready to go, remastered, looked really good compared to what it originally looked like on the N64. And this was a game that was supposed to come out, I think, back in like 2007 or something like that, but it never was able to make its way out to the players because of all of these licensing things, and all of that stuff just got in the way of officially releasing that game. We've also seen recently some achievements that look like they are for this remaster of Goldeneye that have shown up. They have been leaked, which made people think that this game was closer to being released than we thought. And it looks like that may not be the case, as Jeff Grubb replied to this question here from this user on Twitter asking, where is my 1v100 and Goldeneye? And he responds, Goldeneye is still in limbo because of the war, and 1v100's team lead has left Microsoft, so I don't know what that means for the game. So again, this is all speculation, this is all rumors, but if you are wondering where these games are, if they're going to be coming out anytime soon, they're probably not going to be. Who knows when or if they will ever make their way out. And then we have an update here from Brian Gerard on the Halo Infinite Network co-op insider flight. Now, people have been reporting that this was going to be coming out on July 11th, but their target was the week of July 11th. And here is the PSA that Brian Gerard has put out. And Brian Gerard, as you know, is the Halo community director at 343. He says here, the team is still working on our upcoming Halo Infinite Network co-op insider flight build. While we always said our target was the week of July 11, many sites reported it simply as starting July 11. Still hoping for this week, but it will not start today. Flighting is fluid as the process entails discovering issues in initial rings and resolving them before expanding to a larger audience. A few issues were discovered in our current flight ring and the team is working to address. Apologies to folks who expected the flight today. We're eager to get this into your hands, but we also want to ensure it's a positive and worthwhile flight experience. Still targeting this week, but it's day by day as work continues. Thank you for your patience and understanding. There you have it. If you were looking to play Halo Infinite Network co-op yesterday or even today, you're probably not going to get it until sometime later this week. But co-op for Halo Infinite is something people have been waiting for literally since the launch of the game. It's becoming very long of a wait to just get basic co-op online or whatever within Halo Infinite, and hopefully this all gets worked out. Hopefully this actually does hit the target of the week of July 11th. They don't have to push it off further, because co-op's going to change the entire experience of playing through the campaign when you have somebody else with you, when you're going to be able to go and take on enemies in different ways, take on these banished strongholds in different ways. I want co-op to be good. I don't want them to rush it, but at the same time, since this game did come out in December of 2021, you were hoping that we would get this sooner rather than later, and it's not going to be coming out for a little bit longer now, especially because they're just going into flighting. Then you're going to have the couch co-op, which you're not going to be able to get until season 3 and beyond. All right, anything's off here with just some Sony news. First of all, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, Sony launched gaming gear that was aimed at PC players with some headphones and some gaming monitors. Now, this was interesting because they're calling them the in-zone monitors, and like they said, they're aiming them at PC, which is really showing Sony's push to get the PC marketplace, especially with what they're doing with releasing their first-party games onto PC. Sony knows now at this point they really have to expand out of that console exclusivity thing where they're really just trying to push their consoles on to people in order to get them into their ecosystem. PC is going to be huge for them. So they have been releasing some more PC stuff. Now, this is just a part of their plan, as the Sony executive talked about how they want to be the Nike of gaming gear. So the president of Sony claimed that Sony's background as a television company gives it an advantage in the PC market, where most monitors are created by PC manufacturers, and specifically says here about wanting to make Sony the Nike of video games, saying there is no dominant leader yet among established producers. The situation is like a landscape of warring states. Many existing producers trace their origins to PC manufacturing because monitors are designed to display data. There are problems to overcome with vibrancy and contrast. Sony is unique in that we come from a background in TV manufacturing. We take pride in our picture technology. We look forward to showing customers our immersive experience and realism. And the in-zone products, which are compatible with PlayStation 5, are targeted for PC. As it says here, targets hardcore PC gamers, not PlayStation users. We're going to start at the top and learn what top esports gamers want. The vision we have have in mind is that of Mizuno and Nike providing shoes for athletes. You can win prize money in esports. If a monitor's response time lags even slightly, you lose. Sony products aren't going to let people engage in these grueling battles down. So that's the direction Sony is trying to go with targeting the PC market, trying to capture that as being known as the Nike, as the place that you will want to go if you're looking for a monitor, if you're looking for headphones to get the best performance, especially within esports tournaments, which is an interesting way to go for Sony. They do own Evo, which is huge in esports, and maybe they're thinking if they can get big tournaments, have it all specced out with Sony monitors, Sony headphones, all that type of stuff, it'll really help push forward them capturing more of the PC market. But we'll have to wait and see how this all turns out. If their products are as good as they say they are, if they're competitive with prices and with performance. And finally, the acquisition of Haven Studios is now official, as the agreement to acquire Haven has closed and they are officially part of PlayStation Studios. Haven is that new studio that opened up in Montreal with Jade Raymond behind it, one of the creators of Assassin's Creed, amongst other great games from Ubisoft. And they are now working on a games as a service game for PlayStation. We don't know anything about it, but we do know when it comes to PlayStation strategies going forward, they want to make more games as a service game in order to capture more of their market. They know right now they are behind when it comes to games as a service, multiplayer, games that you can play for long periods of time and have people's attention for long periods of time, as PlayStation, as we know, really owns the third-person narrative driven style games. And then when you come over to a platform like Xbox, you have those styles of games, the narrative driven style games, but you also have a lot more games as a service and multiplayer games, which gets people playing for longer periods of time. And PlayStation knows they have to compete with that going forward, and Haven Studio is one of those studios that's going to help them do that with creating a games as a service game. But the deal is now official, the deal is now closed, and Haven Studios is a part of PlayStation Studios. But that's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on being able to install Windows 98 and play Windows 98 games on your Xbox Series X and S. What are your thoughts on everything that is going on with Ubisoft, with turning off games and getting rid of people's ability to play DLC? What do you think about the PlayStation being the Nike of gaming when it comes to headphones and monitors, and Haven Studios officially now being a part of PlayStation Studios? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Bye.